Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Lee Hunt, UK Product Manager here at Koch Media, and I'm delighted to be joined in the studio today by Stuart Chiplin, who is the producer of the C64. Stuart, welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me, Lee.
Hey, no problem at all. It certainly beats the office on a day like today.
It does indeed, yes. It's a lot warmer in here. Thank you.
It certainly is. We're here today to talk about one of the finest, one of the greatest home computers of all time, the rebirth of a legend. In fact, the rebirth of the biggest selling single line home computer of all time. And of course, I'm talking about the C64. Stuart, before we get into much detail about the new C64, I'd just like to point out that this has already been reborn in mini form. Which came out last year.
Yes, indeed, Lee, you're correct, yes. We released this last year to play into the market of the mini eras of SNES and NES and other ones. And so we released a mini home computer, which is going back to the halcyon days of the 1980s and classic 8-bit home computing.
Fantastic. So, without further ado, let's have a look at the packaging, let's have a look at what's inside the box, and let's see exactly what this new C64 has to offer. So here it is in all its glory, the C64. The first thing that I'm going to say is it's a lot bigger than the Mini, and it's certainly a lot weightier than the Mini as well. The packaging is very striking as well. It feels and looks just like I remember a C64 packaging from back in the day. I take it that's a conscious design decision.
Yes, Lee, yes, indeed, yes. We aim to go and recreate the original packaging in both kind of size and shape, but also the kind of colours and the kind of logos involved. You know, the logos on the front here and on the back. Very good job as well. Just to turn it round so that everybody can see the back as well. It's got details of all the games that you can play on it, lots of features of the actual machine itself, as well as things like the basic and the VIC-20 modes as well, which we'll get into in a bit more detail. I'm quite excited to just crack this open and have a look. So, can I do it? Absolutely.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's have a look. And here it is. Wow, look at that. It is literally a C64. It's even got a fully working keyboard. So just in terms of scale, how much smaller is the Mini than the C64?
Well, I have one here.
Even better.
There you go. It's a 50% replica with the Mini.
Wow,
so,
okay.
And the full size is an identical replica to the original machine.
Wow, so that'll explain why the C64 Mini didn't have a fully functioning keyboard, whereas this one absolutely does. This is lovely. This is absolute nostalgia in a box right here. Let's crack open the joystick and let's have a look at everything that's inside.
Absolutely.
So Stuart, we've unpacked all the contents, all the goodies outside of the box. Do you want to just talk us through exactly what's included?
Okay, so of course we have the full-size C64 and its lovely working keyboard.
Excellent.
We have the box that's within the box, which contains all these other things. So we have the quick guide, which is a quick guide, clearly, to instruct you how to set it all up. The HDMI lead for connecting it to your television. The power brick and power lead to allow you to power your device via USB.
Can you actually plug into the TV and power off the TV anyway?
Yeah, most TVs will allow you to plug directly into it and power off there, or you can plug it into any mobile phone charger.
Fantastic. But if your TV doesn't support that, you've also got
the power brick already, yeah.
Fantastic.
And also included is the new micro-switch joystick.
So as you can see, we've taken the C64 out of its box. We've actually lined it up next to an original C64 as well, just to show you how aesthetically close it is between the two systems. The first thing I want to touch on though is the difference between the C64 and the C64 Mini. Can you give me some detail on that?
The main difference, obviously, other than the size, clearly, is the recreated C64 has a full working keyboard, which the Mini obviously doesn't have. On top of that, also has a more powerful processor inside that allows you to use different TV systems like the American and the European TV systems side by side. You can choose that, have that choice within the machine as well. And it's got more USB ports. The Mini had 2 and the full size has 4 USB ports. To allow a couple of joysticks and a USB key. Or whatever else you want to plug into it.
Fantastic. I must say, just from clicking the keyboard, it feels so similar. I mean, you can tell an ever so slight difference. I mean, Is there much difference in terms of response times or technology within the working keyboard?
They are very, very different, even though we have done everything we can to get as close as we can to the original. This is almost a 40-year-old keyboard, effectively from the VIC-20 era, and this is based on more of a modern kind of keyboard structure, but the spring and the travel are almost identical to the original, and that's the main thing. The feel is the key factor here, and it does feel exactly like the original.
When you come to actually playing the games, I mean, obviously there's 64 games pre-installed on the system itself. It runs BASIC as well, the original coding software. How similar are they in terms of the emulation? I mean, is it like for like?
The recreated 64 has a whole new kind of interface compared to the Mini. It allows you to play the 64 games in there, and there's a slight variation in the types of games in there, mainly to allow more use of the keyboard. Compared to the original, the basics are identical, so the operating system exactly as you would see with the original machine. You can boot it into that mode, and actually, once you turn the machine on, it will just load the original screen as well, which is absolutely fantastic, and you can start coding away. With the games, some of the games choices are different because this also emulates a VIC-20 as well as the original C64, so something that's a real classic 8-bit machine. And also a couple of the games in there are relatively new, and there's one that's only a few years old, made by some of the real coders who still love this machine now.
Wow. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, the C64 was a product of the era back in the 80s, along with things like the BBC Micro and the ZX Spectrum in particular. When you bought a C64 magazine, it wasn't just a demo disc or a demo cassette tape that you got on there. Quite often, you'd actually find the game that you got free with the magazine was inside the magazine. The code would be in there. You'd have to load up your C64 in BASIC and code it in yourself, which is one of the reasons that the UK is such a hotbed for games coding and development. So you can actually do that with this. I can program my own games.
You can go back to one of those old magazines and type in the listing from that magazine. Absolutely. The convenience of this is that you can just save it as you go along. So you can spend ages typing it in, and you can save it to a memory key, or even to the memory actually on the device itself. And so you can just go back to it and carry on typing. And at the end of it, it still won't work because they never worked.
You had to be good. You had to be good.
Had to be good, yeah.
So I assume the only difference is, do I still have the agonising wait while the tape loads?
Yes, you do. Unfortunately, 15 minutes for each game to load.
Wow. Really?
No, obviously, it takes about a fraction of a second to load each game.
Fantastic. Thank God for that. The only other difference that I must point out as well, when I opened the box and I took the joystick out, initially I thought, oh, it's a C64 mini joystick. It isn't, though, quite. I mean, as soon as you touch it, you can feel clicks.
Yes,
it feels slightly more premium than the C64 Mini. Is there a lot of new technology inside the joystick?
The main difference between the two joysticks is that this is now micro switch. So these have got specific little switches within the stick as well and on the buttons that allow real precise movement. Something that some of the joysticks had back in the 80s, and something that we really wanted to get inside this one as well. So something that's really precise and for the fans.
Fantastic. The C64 Mini joystick, though, if I plug that in, it will still work?
Yeah, not only will that work, also there's plenty of third-party joypads and joysticks will also work on as well. Most USB controllers will work on the device.
Excellent. I think we've talked enough about the tech. Should we boot one up and play some games?
Absolutely.
Stu, thanks very much for setting up the C64. We've got it all booted up, ready to go. I notice it boots straight into the carousel mode. Is that by design?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the first thing you see when you turn the machine on, though you can get it to set up in classic basic mode as well if you want.
Wow, so you can literally launch it like the original C64?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Obviously, we said there was 64 games on there. Now, I know there's going to be some seminal classics on there that most gamers will be familiar with. So your games like your Boulder Dash and Monty on the Run, Speedball 2, Impossible Mission, California games. There's some really, really amazing games on there. I'm just wondering, because obviously you've spent a long time with the system,
yeah.
Is there any kind of like hidden gems within this carousel that you want to shout out?
Yeah, there are absolutely plenty in here, especially some new ones as well, which were not on the Mini. So a classic would be Attack of the Mutant Camels, a Jeff Minter game from the early 80s. Jeff Minter's one of those seminal programmers of that time, and his games are incredibly popular with that era.
I mean, that sounds amazing.
It is a completely crazy, trippy game, but yeah, absolutely great fun. Boulder Dash, as you mentioned, and California Games are absolute classics as well. Especially California Games has been on many, many different platforms over the year, but the C64 version being an absolute classic. The genres are in here as well. Lots of puzzle games, shooters, platformers, some sports games. A good mix of different types of games. Especially something like Galencia being one of the newer games on the device as well. So this came out in 2017 and is an absolute classic arcade shoot 'em up.
Amazing.
Going forward, Grid Runner, another Jeff Minter classic. This is a VIC-20 game in this place, so there's some real good gameplay with this.
Yeah, I remember Grid Runner. Very much a Centipede influence.
Absolutely, yes. There are definitely some homages to classic machines, arcade machines.
Yeah.
This era. Going through, there are some, another Jeff Minter game, which is Hover Bother, great gardening game. You don't see that in this day and age anymore. Impossible Mission 1 and 2, which are absolute classics for the C64. Monty games, Nebulous, which is a great 3D kind of tower game. Great fun, punishingly hard game.
Yeah, I actually saw somebody do a speed run of that in like 15 minutes, which was quite incredible.
That's incredible. It took me 15 minutes just to do the first level. It's incredibly difficult, but one that you should really enjoy and play. Planet of Death is another great one. You can see on the display that it's literally a text adventure.
Wow.
So this is a great indication of using the keyboard to actually program and type in your actual routes within the game.
Absolutely.
And then you've got another one of my favourites here, Robin of the Wood, where you can play Robin Hood, which brings me back to the days of Robin of Sherwood back in the 80s, and I wanted to be Robin Hood there.
So I'm assuming that some of these games are kind of like handpicked from your own youth.
In some cases, yeah. I mean, licensing is challenging, but definitely that was one of my favourites at the time, and I'm glad that we've managed to get it on here.
Indeed. Loads and loads of really awesome games on this carousel. I'm looking forward to having a go on some of these.
Good.
Excellent. You mentioned that it displays at 720p. Is that the only display setting, or can you change other things?
There are a few different settings you can go to. Go down to the bottom of the menu and select the little TV there, and you can change the different screen size settings. So you can play in Pixel Perfect, which fills the screen of a modern TV. Looks fantastic. But you can go back to the nostalgia on actual real size as it would have been back in the day. You can also add scan lines in the CRT mode as well in the same settings as well. So you can have that real nostalgic feel.
Excellent. In terms of other settings, what else can I do with this?
You can change the language, so effectively you can choose one of the different languages of the menu there, which is, most devices would have, but more interestingly you have all sorts of different options within here. You can change the computer mode, so effectively you can go to C64 or VIC-20 modes within the PAL or American systems, TV systems. You can also go to the boot mode, and this is where you can change from the classic carousel to the classic basic screen as well. And you can just go straight into that, and you can boot your machine from there. To show you that classic mode, we can just go straight into that now, and you can see the original basic screen.
Wow.
And that's how it will boot up if you stay in this mode.
That is proper nostalgia right there.
Absolutely.
So I mean, in terms of basic, you can actually... Oh, actually, hang on. So you're actually typing something. You're actually coding something in basic.
Absolutely, yeah. Trying my best.
Is this going to work?
It should do, yes.
Wow. What?
This is the classic maze.
That's amazing. And you can literally just boot up and do that straight from the box.
Absolutely. I'd like to think you could do something a bit more complex.
I'm loving this. I'm loving this machine. I think it's time to play some games.
Let's go for it.
Let's do it. Stu, you've entrusted me with the joystick.
Yeah.
You've let me select my game. I've selected Galencia Mini. The reason that I've selected that one is because you mentioned that it came out in 2017.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah, so that's 35 years after the release of the machine. So the people are still making these games right now, and you can buy them online and plug them directly into this machine. With this one specifically, the actual programmers have created a version for this machine. So that's why it's called Galencia Mini. It's actually using some of the features that the Mini has that allows it to fill the screen and use some of the HD features that the Mini has.
Wow. I've just lost a life.
Yeah, you could be better at this.
I must say, graphically, for a C64 game, I mean, the explosion effect is absolutely superb.
Yeah, it's amazing
really
what people are doing nowadays with the hardware that is almost 40 years old now, the hardware. So it's quite impressive.
I mean, if you were to play this on an arcade machine back in at around the time of the C64, you wouldn't feel shortchanged from putting 10p in here.
Absolutely not.
It's an absolute classic kind of 2D shooter.
And just as challenging as they were back in the day as well.
As you can see, yeah. I got to level 1.5.
Yeah. It's all right, I guess.
We have clearly ascertained that I'm not very good at Galencia.
Yeah, okay.
I've got to be honest, I'm not very good at Speedball 2 either. However, I used to play it as a kid. Yeah. And there's a real nostalgia feel to this game for me, so I'm going to play Speedball 2 if that's okay.
Absolutely, go for it.
I'm just going to go straight into a knockout game. I'm not going to mess around with picking players or anything like that or changing stats. We're just going to go straight in. Now, in terms of somebody like me who's not particularly good at speedball, as you can see, although I've got a chance here to... I've done it!
Oh,
Here
you
we
did it,
go.
you got it, absolutely
What I
fantastic.
want to do now is I want to make sure that I protect this lead. Is there any way that I can kind of like save my progress?
Yeah, back in the day, there's no way you could actually save games on these machines. Not easy. Maybe on some of the text adventures you could save to a cassette or a floppy drive, but on this game you can actually save the state at any point. So you can just
Excellent.
press the button on the controller, and you can actively just bring up a little menu at the bottom. There's a virtual keyboard within this menu as well, so some of the games need you to type in, say, your initials for a save game or something. Yeah. If you go to the save load state, you can actually have 4 options to save. Any game has these 4 options. So you ultimately 64 times 4 different options save states. You just press the button, which is the left-hand button.
Yeah.
And that will just save that state. So at any point you can go back to that exact point in time.
So if
you really mess up this goal, you've lost. So now you can just go back, bring that up to that menu, go to there and press the button there, and you'll be back in exactly where you were.
Fantastic.
And then you lose again. But
oh no, it's actually happening. No.
I mean, you could keep doing that, but
I can just keep going back in and
the
saving
gameplay.
and loading the state until. Well, I mean, it certainly makes it easier for somebody like me who's. I'm just going to say the word out of practice. I'm not necessarily saying I'm bad at the game.
Yeah,
I'm just clearly out of practice. As you can see, it's really not going well. I must say though, I mean, I grew up playing this game with a control pad, with a D-pad. So to play it on a joystick feels a lot more natural. It feels. It actually feels more responsive with the joystick, just because you've got that kind of like element of control with the diagonals. It's really nice and smooth to play. I forgot how much I like this game as well. It's oh, but I'm not very good at it. I'm really not very good at it. But it's excellent. Love it. Stu, thanks so much for bringing in the C64. It's been a pleasure playing video games with you all
It's
day.
a great little device.
It really, really is. When's it available?
It's out this December.
Out in December, superb. I look forward to picking one up. Thanks again, really appreciate it. If you want to find out more about the C64, you can check out thec64.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at KochMediaUK. And if you've got any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to us on YouTube as well. And until next time, we'll see you then.